Hi, friends, I'm Bailey. Welcome to my corner of the internet. I hope you're doing well today. Please take a moment, like, subscribe, and let me know where you're coming in from. Thank you all so much for all the love and support. I'm going to tell you today's story from the best of my ability, taking very public information and filtering it through my own unprofessional opinion. Please do your own research and form your own opinion. As uncomfortable as it is for us to talk about these things, we owe it to them to listen to their unbearable stories, learn something from it, and raise awareness. Today's riddle: a woman shoots her husband and then holds him underwater for 5 minutes. Next, she hangs him. Right after, they enjoy a lovely dinner. Explain. Angela Boswell was 16 when she gave birth to Tommy Jr. in 1993. Tommy Sr. racked up an assault charge in Sullivan County a few months later after Tommy Jr. was born. Reports show that he was convicted of a misdemeanor assault, and the couple moved to Bulls Gap a year later. In 2001, Angela Boswell gave birth to the couple's second child, Megan. Now, Megan went by Maggie to those that was closest to her. According to reports, home life was incredibly unstable. There were multiple instances documented throughout the years of DV within the home between Angela and Tommy Sr. The children witnessed a lot of this. Angela was in and out of jail, allegedly doing drugs in front of the kids, and always having them around different criminals. In March 2009, Angela allegedly stabbed Tommy Sr. in the neck with a pin, and 14-year-old Tommy Jr. witnessed this and had to come to his father's aid. There was a struggle between Angela, their son, and Tommy Sr. until eventually the authorities arrived and put an end to it. A few months later, the couple was back together in Sullivan County, settling the kids in a mobile home on a family-owned property on Muddy Creek Road. Angela and Tommy Sr. were very on and off. For the kids bounced around to different places, and there was a lot of criminal activity involved in their lives. Unfortunately, sometimes that criminal activity involved their children. On a cold February morning in 2012, Tommy Sr., Tommy Jr., and another man pulled up to the house to confront Angela about having a man named Brandon at the house. Brandon opened the door after he was immediately threatened by Tommy Jr. Brandon walked outside and halfway down the driveway when he looked over and saw a gray Chevy truck flooring it directly at him. And on the side of that vehicle said Tommy's Paving. Brandon was struck by the truck and was flipped over the hood. The trio gathered around Brandon and began punching him and kicking him, and he just laid there defenseless. They didn't stop until Brandon was finally able to get up and get away, and he ran to a nearby house to call for help. Tommy Sr. told authorities, "Yeah, the three of us worked him over." Both Tommy Sr. and Tommy Jr. were charged with attempted M, and they ended up pleading no contest to this and walked away with just probation. A few weeks after receiving these attempted M charges, Tommy Sr. ended up with more domestic assault charges and kidnapping in regards to the incident that happened with him and Angela. In this case, he entered a guilty plea and received probation again. Tommy and Angela get back together again, and they actually go on to have another child. And then within a year or so, they would be back in conflict. They ended up officially getting divorced around 2014. 2 years later, in 2016, they reunited once more and had their fourth child, Charlotte. But that rekindled romance didn't last for long, and their relationship soon came to an end sometime in 2018. Tommy Sr. ended up trying to file for sole custody of the three children, who were still minors, According to him, Angela had fallen into a deep, destructive lifestyle and was consistently being pulled over for all sorts of traffic violations. She was cited for not properly restraining the children in the car, and she was just reportedly in and out of jail for. Now, Megan was 17 years old at this time, and she gets pregnant by 19-year-old Ethan Perry. There's no relationship between Megan and the child's father. When Ethan left high school, he decided to enlist in the military. He's stationed in Louisiana, leaving Megan all alone to deal with the pregnancy and eventually their daughter, Evelyn Boswell. For most of Megan's pregnancy, she stayed with her mother, Angela. Unfortunately, Angela landed in jail again, so Megan and her siblings ended back up at Tommy Sr.'s home. It's located off of Muddy Creek Road in Blounteville, Tennessee. November 21st, 2018, Evelyn May Boswell was born in Bristol, Tennessee. From the time that Evelyn was born, she had piercing blue eyes that stood out, blonde hair, and a huge smile to go along with her loving nature. According to all accounts, Megan thrived as a mother. She was constantly posting pictures of Evelyn on social media or herself with Evelyn and them doing something together. She was continually doting on Evelyn and how advanced she was, talking about how she was hitting all of her milestones early. She was very independent for a baby, and she had gotten to a sippy cup pretty early in age. In September of 2019, Evelyn was roughly about 10 months old, and Megan posted on Facebook saying, "I'm not the best mom in the world, but I try so hard for this little beauty. I can't even explain the love I feel for her, and I know she loves me too. You can say whatever you want about me being a young mom, but I promise you, my life is so much better with this angel. My life wasn't ruined when I had her. She gave me purpose and a reason to wake up every day and better myself. There's no love like the love from your child." Megan never seemed to be overwhelmed by being a parent. She even helped her friends who had very young children. They said it was like she was a lifesaver for them. Unfortunately, all of this was called into question on February 18th, 2020, when Tommy Sr. called the Tennessee Department of Children's Services to report that he had not seen his 15-month granddaughter, Evelyn Boswell, and he was very concerned about her whereabouts and her well-being. According to Tommy, he had been trying to get a straight answer from multiple family members about Evelyn's whereabouts. He claimed that numerous family members were telling very odd stories and that they had not seen Evelyn since the holidays. On February 19th, 2020, an Amber Alert was issued for 15-month-year-old. Why do I keep doing this? On February 19th, 2020, an Amber Alert was issued for 15-month-old Evelyn Boswell. Investigators first believed that she was last seen on December 26th, 2019. According to Megan, none of her family had seen Evelyn because she had spent the holidays with her father, Ethan Perry. He was back in the area over the Christmas holidays, and obviously this was a great opportunity for them to spend quality one-on-one time with each other. But Megan stated that Ethan was acting strange, and a few things had also concerned her about Evelyn's safety. Megan said that Ethan was supposed to have Evelyn over the holidays, and the last time she spoke to Evelyn was on December 26th. She said that after December 26th, Ethan stopped responding to text messages and phone calls regarding Evelyn. But after saying all of this, Megan tells the Sullivan County Sheriff's Department that she has finally sorted stuff out. However, they still wanted to reach out to Ethan Perry just to ensure that everything was right on track and that he was going to hand Evelyn back over to her mom. But to their shock, when they reached out to Ethan, He said he had never taken leave from the military and he was still on active duty. He was stationed in Louisiana and had not returned home for the holidays. He had not had custody of Evelyn for any period of time over the holidays. There were never any plans to meet Megan in any parking lot in Blounteville to hand Evelyn over. As a matter of fact, he goes on in testimony talking about the only time he had ever seen Evelyn was when Megan did a drop in when he was, um, I think he was like about to be deployed or something, but she showed up at a hotel. And so he was like, okay, well, I felt odd. So let's spend some time together. But that's the only time he saw Evelyn. On the following day, February 19th, just around 4 p.m., the Sullivan County Sheriff's Department made a statement and released photos of Evelyn announcing that she was a missing child. Authorities initially gave the date of December 26th as the last date that Evelyn was reported as being seen. She was wearing a pink tracksuit, pink shoes, and a pink bow on her head. The Amber Alert also stated that she had blonde hair, blue eyes, stood about 2 feet tall, and weighed approximately 28 pounds. Megan had been dating a young man named Hunter Wood since December. Hunter and Megan worked at his family owned chicken shack. Soon after dating, Megan had a Facebook page with her last name being Wood, which was Hunter's last name. A little odd. They just met in December. This led people to his business Facebook page, and people were furious. He got all sorts of questions and threats. And so he ended up doing an interview on February 20th because he felt like he needed to clear the air. He tells the press that he never even met Evelyn, that he's only seen photos of her, and that he and Megan had been dating off and on since December, but that it wasn't very serious. Well, he claims that he was told that Evelyn was with her father, Ethan. Hunter tells reporters that he and Megan broke up the day that the Amber Alert went out. He actually said that she couldn't live with him anymore. At the end of this interview, he casually slips in that Megan had told him that Evelyn fell off the bed and broke her arm, and that Evelyn's father, Ethan Perry, had to take her to the hospital, which was the first time that anyone had ever heard this story. He also states that Megan told him that she and Ethan had split custody and that Ethan had Evelyn while home on military leave for Christmas. Angela, her mom, told investigators that she had not been in communication with Megan since September. In late December, she ended up hearing that Evelyn had been taken out of Megan's custody and placed in foster care. So she reached out to Megan to try to help her. Angela decided she wasn't going to bring up the fact that Evelyn had been taken from Megan because she didn't want to upset her. She just wanted Megan to come on her own and tell her what was going on. But she said that that never actually happened. Angela just believed Megan was embarrassed that her child had been taken away from her. Megan and Tommy Sr. said Angela threatened Tommy Sr. But Angela claims that that was the moment that she learned that Evelyn was not in foster care, but that she was missing. Megan didn't know where Evelyn was. So, according to Angela, this phone call blindsided her. And Angela said that Megan wasn't living with her dad, or he would have noticed Evelyn was gone. And at that time, until the Amber Alert went out, she had actually moved in with Hunter. Her dad had gotten her a trailer in on the family property, and they showed pictures of it, and it was absolutely disgusting. And then they actually had the guy come in and testify that had to clean up the mess, and so he's the one that took the photos, and there was just trash piled up. It was gross. And it seems that she lived there, and then she wound up leaving that a wreck, whether intentionally or not, and then she moved in with Hunter. When the Amber Alert was issued, Hunter said, "Nope, I'm not in this. You got to go." On the 19th, Megan called Angela and said Hunter doesn't want her to be here anymore because of everything that's going on. So Angela picked her up that day from a gas station and took her to the sheriff's department to speak to authorities. This was the last time Angela claimed she had any contact with Megan, and Megan confirmed that in her interview that day. Now, she called her mom the day that Hunter kicked her out for her to help her. And then the next day, she threw her under the bus. Like, seriously. She started making all kinds of accusations that she's the one that took Evelyn. According to Angela, she and her boyfriend William drove to North Carolina the following day after dropping Megan off at the sheriff's department. Angela just wanted to clear her head and figure out what happened to Evelyn. She was so worried, so she decided to drive to North Carolina where William had family to kind of get a little bit of a breather and just kind of get a clear head. She even states in this interview that she was in contact with the authorities on the 21st of February. Everyone who was involved with Megan started getting questioned by detectives as they tried to figure out what was going on. On February 20th, investigators spoke to Hunter, who told investigators he had never met Evelyn in the months that he and Megan had been dating, claiming not once had he ever been around the little girl. The next day, the 21st, the bolo goes out for a stolen BMW that was suspected to be involved in the case because Megan was telling them all sorts of stories about who had her daughter and where she was at the time. So the authorities believed that her mother, Angela, the one that picked her up from Hunter, took her to the police station, wanted to get away and clear her head. It was then said that she's the one that actually had Evelyn. So this bolo goes out for this car that Angela was driving. The authorities believe because of Megan that Angela may have taken her out of state with her boyfriend. The vehicle would be located in Megan's mother's care and her boyfriend, William McLeod, and they were arrested and taken into custody in North Carolina for theft of the stolen BMW. But Evelyn was nowhere to be found. She wasn't with Angela and William. It wouldn't be long before Angela was extradited to Tennessee. Meanwhile, Megan started getting grilled over and over and over again, just trying to get some answers out of her. At one point, she's saying that she gave Evelyn to Ethan because Ethan never helped her with their daughter and she wanted him to know what it was like to raise a child with no help. It seemed that she was trying to get back at him because he never did anything for their daughter and he wouldn't even call to check in on her. Another account, she claims that her mother took her to Virginia and that she didn't report her daughter missing because of that, because she was scared that if the authorities were looking for them, that her mother might do something horrific to the little girl. So she just didn't want to risk this. Now, I have yet to figure out, I watched the trial and I could have missed it, but I can't figure out exactly how the BMW plays a part in the case because the BMW was in that the mom and the mom's boyfriend was driving was actually registered and in the name of Hunter's mom. So that's why it was reported stolen, because Hunter's mom would have reported it stolen. Hunter had kicked her out, but why did the mom have the car in the first place? Why didn't Megan have the car? That's what would make more sense. It just, maybe she didn't have a license, but I don't know why Hunter, and at this time I think it's like in February. So she goes missing in December, or her and Hunter start dating in December. So why would you just give your car to somebody who you're on and off again to a family member? I don't know. The BMW thing is weird. Couldn't figure that one out. On February 21st, the sheriff's department held a news conference to discuss the Amber Alert. During this press conference, they changed the timeline a bit. Evelyn had last been seen on December 10th or 11th by a babysitter, it was announced. And there was not much that the public could do to help. They did not want the public to be out there involved. They had several different agencies and strategic searches going on. Tommy Sr. ended up doing an interview that added to the speculation that Angela was potentially involved in the disappearance of Evelyn Boswell. This is the third interview with Tommy. In this interview, Tommy states that he contacted his ex-wife and told them that if Evelyn doesn't come home soon, he is going to the police and doing something about it. He claims that she threatened him and said, "You better not do that. You're going to regret this." It added to the overall suspicion that foul play was somehow involved and that Megan knows much more than she told the investigators. It was also announced that Tommy Jr. and Tommy Sr. would also contribute $10,000 to the reward for information on Evelyn's whereabouts. For the next few days, authorities reviewed tips, conducted numerous searches, and continued interviewing as many people as possible. Now, Angela and William maintained that they did not know where Evelyn was or who even had her. They both bonded out, and just 2 days later, Megan does another interview where the story changes again. Megan says her mom took Evelyn to a campsite in Virginia. She starts describing her family as gypsies and says, "Well, yeah, my dad's very proud of that. He's mad about the rumors that are going on because it's not like we're a cult and people have been asking that there's some type of gypsy ring going on, and there's not." Now, police actually went to this campground in Virginia, searched it, but nothing was found. On the 24th, there ended up being another interview with Megan. So, this interview was actually interesting because this is where Megan herself confirms that her mother's the one that took Evelyn. She claims that the reason why she never reported as missing was because her mother was threatening her. From this interview, it seemed like Megan was hoping Angela would bring her daughter back to her without involving the authorities. Now, she goes on in this interview to put the police down, that they haven't done anything, that she keeps telling them where to go and that they're not searching, they're not taking it seriously. And if they don't go and search it, she's going to go herself, even though they told her not to, but she's going to go herself. The officers would eventually bring in Megan's father to talk to him and see if he could get Megan herself to open up about the truth. Now, you see a clear difference in the way Megan responds to her father rather than the detectives. And even her father is in the interrogation room saying, "No chance. What you are claiming is the truth." Megan says that her mom has Evelyn. Tommy says, "Since when did Angela come and get Evelyn?" Megan says, "Back in December, around the time she was last seen alive." And Tammy's like, "No, she don't have her." Now, the news actually contacted the Sullivan County Sheriff's Department to find out why Megan claimed that they weren't going to this campsite to look for Evelyn. The Sullivan County Sheriff said that Megan was not being truthful in this interview. They had already been there and they already searched the entire camp and nothing was found. On February 25th, Megan messaged a news station on Facebook. Now, this was like so bad. I don't know what was going through her brain. It was just so bad. She messaged a news station on Facebook. She showed up at the Sullivan County Sheriff's Department to clear her name, but she made a huge spectacle of this. Now, she starts doing an interview right outside, and she says, "I come down here to prove my innocence and to get a polygraph test done. And the police refuses to give me a polygraph test." And then after some pushing a little bit more, she's like, "I can't do the polygraph test, but I can't talk about why." And then she's like, Okay, okay, just kidding. Never mind. I'll tell you. And so she's like, well, I can't get a polygraph test because it's against policy because I'm pregnant. However, the Sullivan County Sheriff's Department completely shuts this down. When they were asked about it, they said that a polygraph test isn't even there's no policy about this if you're pregnant or not. He said that they can't even give a polygraph test because it would have to be outsourced because they don't do it there. Now, they even went to check to see if Megan scheduled something with the Tennessee Bureau of Investigations and see if she was willingly going to like go in and, maybe she made a deal with something. And no, she had nothing. Nothing at all. Megan does keep saying that Evelyn's fine. I know she's fine. I know who has her. She's fine. She's safe. TBI formally announced Megan's arrest. She was charged with one count of false reporting and her bond was $25,000. They went on to publicly announce that she was severely hindering the investigation. The following day, on February 26th, a press conference formally announced her arrest. Later, on February 26th, a tip came in for authorities to search a pond in Wilkes County, North Carolina. This pond is near where Megan's mom, Angela's boyfriend William's grandma, owns the property. North Carolina is also where Angela and William were arrested just a few days prior. Now, I believe it was the grandma said that they actually came to ask her for money and that they were trying to get out of the state. She says that her grandson's feet were wet, and she even acts like she believed that they could be involved in something as horrendous as this. Authorities searched this body of water. They used a remotely operated vehicle to search the pond. After over an hour of searching, they ended up just calling it off. And they announced that the search was inconclusive and that they didn't find anything. There was nothing to suggest that anything had been hidden in the lake when Angela and William came to visit his grandmother. Now, tips continued to roll in, and on February 28th, just 10 days after Evelyn's first reported missing, the police received a tip to search a trailer park owned by Tommy. They searched the trailer park, but they came up with nothing. Now, William did another interview and told reporters that he had only seen Evelyn twice ever. He said he had started dating Angela in June of the previous year, so it was about 8 or 9 months, give or take. So all he knew was that Megan and Angela had not had the best relationship and had some disagreements. There were periods when they just weren't in contact with each other. He claimed that sometime in recent months, Angela caved and wanted to rekindle their relationship with Megan because she wanted to be in Evelyn's life. She wanted to be able to be a grandmother and have contact and just, get life going again. Now, there was a press release, I believe. Captain Andy Seabolt said after Megan's arrest, I cannot confirm or deny her pregnancy. What I can tell you is that the jail medical staff keeps track of pregnant inmates for obvious reasons. On Monday, February 24th, there were 4 pregnant inmates. On Tuesday, February 25th, just a day later, there were 4 pregnant inmates. Megan Boswell was booked in at 9:19 p.m. on Tuesday. The pregnant inmate count went to 5 on Tuesday at 11 a.m. when a pregnant woman was booked in. On Wednesday, the 26th, the pregnant inmate count was 5 total. So even though he can't technically say anything, he's saying, hey, our record numbers didn't change when Megan came in. On March 2nd, Megan appeared before a judge on her false reporting charges. The defense attempted to lower her bond from 25,000 to 10,000, which was a much more manageable amount because she had no criminal history. But she was still like really young though. They felt like her bond should be reduced, and technically she was not accused of actually doing anything to the baby. The judge disagreed. Megan had told authorities shortly after she was arrested that Evelyn had died. None of her stories had been true this entire time. It was accidental. Megan claimed that she and her boyfriend Hunter had been sleeping together and Evelyn was sleeping with them. She claimed that the following morning she woke up and found Evelyn had essentially been smothered in her sleep. One of them had rolled over onto this 15-month-old baby and she had died. But Hunter was claiming that he never met Evelyn. So either he's lying about meeting Evelyn or Megan's lying about what happened. Megan was still refusing to give a specific date for when any of this had occurred. Also, Evelyn was 15 months old. She was old enough to move her head around. It's not impossible, but Megan was refusing to tell authorities where the body was. On March 6, 2020, after a 17-day search, Tommy Sr. called the authorities and said, "You know what? I've got a shed on my property, and you guys should search it because I believe it may contain valuable information." He claimed his family had not used the shed for many years and that it was actually used as a playhouse for Megan when she was young. It was built by her grandfather, and no one had really been in it since. Authorities arrived at the Muddy Creek property to begin the search, and TBI agent Ryan Fraley, I think, was the first to enter this shed. Most of the shed appeared as if it hadn't been touched in years. Everything was covered in cobwebs except for a few items that didn't seem to be in the same condition as the others. It was a white trash can with some black trash bags inside of it. Now, the agent walked over to the trash can and there was some bags piled on top of it. So the first bag he picked up was filled with diapers and toys. Ugh. Underneath that bag, sticking out of another trash bag, he saw a little foot sticking out of that. It was obvious that they had just found Evelyn. She was wearing the same outfit described by Megan. The badly decomposed body was upside down in the trash can. There was a news report on the scene that said that they actually heard screaming and wailing coming from inside, and it was assumed to be Tommy Sr. On March 11th, the announcement was made that the remains that were found were those of Evelyn Boswell. And right away, all of the records were sealed to protect the integrity of the investigation. But they ended up bringing Megan back in to have a hearing, and they raised her bond to $150,000 due to the circumstances. Now, Tommy Sr. said, "I'm not bailing her out. I believe that she is involved in this, and I'm not having anything to do with her." Megan asked the judge to lower her bail amount, which he refused to do because she was too much of a flight risk. There was an interview with a woman named Christy Broom. Megan was not able to go back up to her dad's house because her dad felt like she knew something about Evelyn. And her mom, Angela, had left to a different state. So Megan ended up staying with this woman. Now, Christy was the mother of one of Megan's childhood friends, and that friend had unfortunately passed away. So Megan and Christy actually seemed pretty close. Christy said that Megan didn't seem very interested in what was going on. It seemed like she was just looking out for herself. And she was super interested in the investigation, but just in a general and I'm going to get in trouble. Am I going to get in trouble? How can I keep myself out of trouble kind of thing? Not, oh my gosh, where's my kid? Megan said, I just feel like my mom would hurt Evelyn and put her on my dad's property. Now, this seems to essentially be Megan telling someone a couple of weeks before Evelyn's body had even been found. According to Christy, when Megan was saying this, she had absolutely no emotion. There weren't any tears or sadness for Evelyn. She was more worried for herself. And when Christy was like, hey, I don't know if this is okay. Like, hey, like, this isn't right. When Christy allegedly called her out on this and was like, you were saying that your mom possibly killed your child and is going to hide her on your father's property. And Christy said that when Megan received the news that they were going to go search the father's property, she seemed to get like really nervous. Christy thought this was super strange. Her behavior was just incredibly odd given the circumstance. And Christy said those first few days when no one heard anything from Megan, it was because of whatever was going on, and she was worried she was going to be arrested. Christy said that Megan's behavior was concerning, and then once the first search of her dad's property was done, that's when Megan all of a sudden pops up doing all these interviews. Nothing was found. So let's do interviews. Over the next couple of months, the investigation continued. By August 19th, Megan was facing a total of 19 charges. There were 2 counts of felony murder, one in perpetration or aggravated CA, and one in perpetration of aggravated child neglect, and one account of aggravated CA, one account of aggravated CA, one account of neglect, one account of tampering with evidence, 12 counts of false reporting, one count of a corpse, and one count of failure to report a death under suspicious or unusual or unnatural circumstances. And I have no idea if I just got them all, but I tried. Megan was facing 19 charges in the death of her daughter. Investigators have publicly spoken out and said that Megan is the sole suspect and that all other persons of interest should have been cleared or ruled out. Now, her defense attorney filed a motion to reduce her bond, citing that she's not a flight risk and she's been in continuous custody since 2020, and that bond is not to be made as a punishment, but rather to prevent accused persons from missing court dates. The judge denied that motion based on the proof and findings in the case. The prosecution noted that they expected the trial to take about 4 weeks, including the jury selection. Now, 2 years passed before the manner of death were finally released. The autopsy was performed at William L. Jenkins Forensics Center in Johnston City. Hold on to your hats, y'all. According to the pathologist, Evelyn died of asphyxiation in 4 separate forms or in 4 different places. Now, Evelyn had been found upside down in a trash can. She was wrapped tightly with a fleece blanket. Her entire face was covered tightly in aluminum foil. She was so tightly wrapped to the point it actually flattened out a portion of her face. She was then placed in the trash can upside down. According to the pathologist, she was pushed into this trash can with such force that it overextended her neck backward so that it was flat, touching her back. So it's like she's like this. You can see it on my nose. The back of her head was on her back, essentially. She then had bags piled on top of her. Unfortunately, there was no way for the autopsy to determine any other injuries due to the level of decomposition. There were no other damages noted to the skeleton. So she was wrapped in aluminum foil. Her face was. She was wrapped in aluminum foil. Then she had a fleece blanket wrapped around that. Then she had been put into a trash can, and then she was put into a trash bag. Then she was put upside down in a trash can with her neck overextended. This pathologist stated that the manner of death was homicide and that this baby was alive when this happened. Now, this information was released during a hearing over what photographs should or should not be shown to the jury. The pathologist was kind of arguing that all of these photos were crucial to understanding the state that Evelyn was in and coming to a conclusion whether it was accidental or homicidal. Megan's attorney, Brad Sproles, strongly felt that all of these photos would trigger an emotional response and it would prevent the jury from taking all of this evidence into consideration. Defense said it was highly prejudicial to show all of these photos. But again, the pathologist argued that they had to see this to understand what exactly happened to Evelyn. The photos show indentation on Evelyn's head and body from the foil and the blanket. They show her body was in the position that wouldn't allow her to breathe. The court did take a recess before getting deep into the testimony because Megan had not ever seen the photos before this hearing. Now, it didn't seem like Megan's attorney, Brad, was doing much for her. It seemed almost like he had made up in his mind that she was already guilty. He even giggled and said that he wouldn't comment when asked if he was surprised about her felony M charges. She ultimately ended up asking for a new court appointed attorney, and he didn't disagree. He did not want to represent her either, and he filed to be removed as her attorney. They said that they could not get on the same page and were having a hard time preparing for these hearings. Brett said he wasn't sure how he would even be able to handle the trial based on the fact that they weren't getting along at that point. The judge denied the request at first, but it said that it could depend based on, what goes on in the future. It was decided that all of the photos would be admissible in court except for one of them, which was a very close-up shot of Evelyn's face after all the layers had been taken off. During this hearing, it was also announced by prosecution that they would not be seeking the DP. Just a month later, in October, Brad stepped down as her attorney, and she had a new attorney, Jean Scott. Jean Scott seems to have hit the ground running in terms of her defense. He had been filing motions left and right and said she's now to wear civilian clothes at all of her hearings and that her case will stay in Sullivan County. The trial started February 2025. Caitlin Carter would testify about meeting up with Megan and Evelyn late in 2019 and the concerns she had following this visit. Now, Caitlin was like, you could tell that she was livid. Like, I just want to be friends with her. She was so matter of fact. She was PO'd. She was so mad that this happened. It just, like, how mad she was is how mad a mom should be that they don't have their daughter anymore. Like, it was just insane watching her testify. And I'm like, that's what you should be thinking about. Like, that's how you should be acting when your daughter's missing. You should be mad at the world. Let's find my kid. But that's not what happened. So Caitlin was pretty angry. She came in hot. Caitlin said she had been around Evelyn roughly 4 times since the time she was born, and in early December of that year, she met the young mother and daughter at a Chili's restaurant to grab some food and to catch up. After arriving at the place and getting to the booth that they were seated in, Caitlin quickly noticed that Evelyn's state of hygiene was significantly poorer than the previous time she had seen her. I'm not gonna lie, I did find it kind of petty in the beginning because I was like, okay, we all have bad days. Our kids are playing, they're dirty. It just, some days just get away from you. So I did find it kind of annoying at first because I was like, okay, the kid was dirty. Like, it's okay. She's a toddler, she's playing, it's okay. But she goes on to say that it wasn't like that before. And I kind of rationalize it in my head like, well, when was the before? Because maybe she wasn't crawling around. But then when you realize the timeline of it, it makes more sense because the timeline of this visit at Chili's was the same or at the same time that she started seeing Hunter. And I think that the entire case is around the fact that she didn't really want a baby anymore. She wanted Hunter. And so it kind of seemed like that started the downfall of a series of events. About a week before the Chili's visit is when she actually met Hunter. Now, it seemed like around this time in December, she had no, she didn't have Evelyn anymore, which now we know why, but it's like all times before that, she always had her. Remember, she was such a great parent and a mom, and she had all the kids for her friends. And now something has changed, and now Evelyn's not being taken care of, and Evelyn's not there. And Megan even sent Caitlin a photo, I think, of the aquarium of her and Hunter, but there was no baby. Now, after this photo at the aquarium, which typically is kind of a kid place, and so Caitlin asked Megan, like, hey, where is the baby? And why hasn't she been around recently? Now, I guess that Megan's response to Caitlin was that Ethan had come across some photos of Evelyn that showed that she had some bruises on her forehead. And because of this, he went for an emergency petition for custody of Evelyn. The exact date of this wasn't identified, but Caitlin guessed it would have been around the end of December. The friends would plan another meetup at the Pinnacle in Bristol, and this time when Megan showed up, she was without Evelyn, which of course was concerning to Caitlin. But she had no reason to believe that Evelyn wasn't with Ethan because that's what she was being told. While they were there, Megan got a phone call from her father, Tommy, who ended up asking about his granddaughter's whereabouts. Megan goes on to tell him the same thing that she told Caitlin. But she also added that she was going to be getting her daughter back sometime in early February. I watched the trial. When you watch the trial and just not the little snippets that the news media points out, although I'm sure that they came out with the story, but you learn some things. You learn some tech thingies, you learn some chemical thingies, and you learn some more about the case. She swore up and down that the baby's father was Ethan. She had Ethan believing that Ethan was the dad. She had her parents, her friends, her family, everybody. Now, I do truly think that she thought Ethan was the dad. I do. I think that she really thought that. But it comes out that that was a lie. I feel so bad for this man because he has been put through the ringer. He said that he actually was out on duty and they pulled him out. Um, I think he was in the barracks, but they actually pulled him out and was like, "Hey, we need to have an investigation on this like right now. What's going on?" And I can't imagine the amount of turmoil, the embarrassment, the feelings of this is my daughter and now she's gone, even though I didn't know my daughter, but that's still my daughter. And then all this starts coming out, and then you're not even the dad. But even further, the dad of the baby is probably sitting there like, oh, yo, I was with this girl at this time, and I'm not saying a word. I'm not saying a word. And the thing is that this is so much like Casey Anthony, it's ridiculous because she blamed it on the babysitter. She blamed it on the dad. She blamed it on the parents. She blamed it on every friends. She blamed it on everything. Just trying to get by. She sent them chasing after the babysitter. That was like the very first story. And I was like, did you not realize that Casey Anthony is like outed? Like nobody likes her. She may have gotten off, but that doesn't mean that she's factually innocent. Um, it just it makes me think about the dads. Like Casey Anthony's dad, the baby daddy, like he probably is like, "Holy cow, I can't believe that that was my kid and I'm not telling a soul." And then here this dad is like, "Oh crap, if he's not the dad, then that means that I probably am the dad and I'm not telling anybody." But it was just insane. Like my mouth dropped when I found out that he was not the dad. After all of this, he was not the dad. Now, on the aluminum foil, a fingerprint was found. It was Megan Boswell's left middle finger. There was a black bag with red drawstring, and there were two fingerprints, the right middle and ring finger. That was Megan Boswell. Evelyn went missing in December 2019, but no one reported her missing until February 2020. Her grandfather called the police, not her mother. When the investigation began, Megan's stories changed repeatedly and were false. She said the baby was at the babysitter. Then she said that Evelyn was with her biological dad. She said she's with Grandma Angela and then her boyfriend, William. Then she says that Grandma Angela gave Evelyn to someone at a campground. Insane. Megan's story is that the baby didn't die from anything malicious. It was an accident. It was that rollover incident. And that Hunter Wood rolled over on her while the baby was sleeping, but that she didn't know where the baby was. Megan's defense argued that the prosecution proved she was a habitual liar who told false stories to detectives time and time again, but they never proved she was a murderer. Following the conclusion of the trial, the jury only deliberated for a few hours before coming back and finding Megan guilty of first-degree M and several other counts. The jury returned to deliberation to determine her sentence, but the prosecution decided not to pursue the death penalty. So she was facing life in prison without the possibility of parole. However, the jury would come back quickly and recommend the sentence of life in prison with the possibility of parole. But her official sentencing, I've not followed up with. Hunter Wood did not testify at trial. His grandfather, I believe, maybe his dad, but somebody testified on his behalf. And apparently, he had recently, at the time of trial, checked himself into a mental health facility. I guess that he was not doing well from all of the hatred and backlash that he was getting. Now, some people say that this is for guilt. I don't know what I believe. I don't ever want to say that somebody is faking it or, trying to do something like that for their own gain. But I'm not going to lie, I found it a little odd that it was like 2 years after the initial, I think it was 2022. So I think it was like 2 or 3 years after the initial investigation started where she actually went missing and all of those things, to the part where he checked himself in, like, because it was very recent to the trial. In my personal opinion, I feel like he probably did that so that he didn't want to testify. And I don't know why exactly. I don't I know that people reacts in different ways, but I just found it odd, and maybe he was struggling for the 2 or 3 years or however long it was between that and the trial. Maybe he was struggling this whole time and then was like, "Okay, I can't take it anymore." So, I don't ever wanna say that I don't believe it. It's just odd to me, and I wonder if it was because he didn't want to testify. And then I don't know why. Is it because you didn't want the public scrutiny? Is it because there was something to hide? I mean, when you look at the trailer that Megan and Evelyn was living in, it was disgusting. Like, it was really, really, really bad. And it's just odd that, I mean, I guess I can understand why you would believe Megan and believe her lies. And I guess, like, to go to being like, "Oh, you're a baby K," and all that stuff. I guess I can understand that, but I just don't understand why right before trial. I mean, is it maybe the stress just sent you overboard because you were going to testify and then you couldn't handle that anymore? I don't know. But it was just odd to me to know that he actually, it made it more questionable that he didn't testify because of that versus if he had testified, just not have testified at all. I don't know. What do you guys think? Do you think that he really was just having a mental breakdown? Do you think that it was a way for him to not testify? Do you think that maybe he is guilty of something? Hunter did actually wind up getting arrested during this period of trial and after baby found all that stuff, and he was arrested for drinking and driving, resisting arrest, and a few other charges after being involved in a DUI accident that sent a woman to the hospital. Now, I guess maybe the guilt of that, it just is weird timing to me. I can't help it. Many people suspect he was involved in the death of Evelyn, but there's been no evidence or proof that that actually happened. Friends and family are remembering the precious 13-month-old for her cheerful attitude. She had such a deep love for bath time, which was her favorite. She also loved sweet potatoes and dancing and the famous baby shark. On April 16th, 2021, Governor Bill Lee signed Evelyn's Law, requiring parents to report missing children 12 and under within 24 hours, or they could face misdemeanor charges. All right, you guys. Whew, that's a loaded one today. Thank you all so much for hanging in with me. I appreciate you guys so much. If you haven't already, please don't forget to like and subscribe. It means so much to me. One day it will be a little less stressful and anxiety ridden, and I'll be a little less nervous to be in front of a camera. I love and appreciate you all so much. Before I leave you, that riddle, that whole forever ago. A woman shoots her husband, then holds him underwater for 5 minutes. Next, she hangs him. Right after, they enjoy a lovely dinner. Explain. She took a picture of him, developed it in her darkroom, and then they went to dinner. Let me know what your thoughts are below. Do you guys see similarities with Casey Anthony? Do you think that Casey Anthony is factually guilty or factually innocent? She was found innocent by a jury of her peers, but do we believe that that came across the way that it should have? Maybe if the trial had been a little bit more streamlined, or if there was a lesser charge included. But what about Casey Anthony? Do you think that she did it? Do you think she didn't do it? Evelyn's case. What do you think happened to baby Evelyn? And I want to know everybody's thoughts on Hunter. Like, why did Hunter not show up at trial? It is odd to me. And can we talk about how Ethan is not the dad? After all of this, Ethan is not the dad. Like, that poor guy. I don't know. I don't know, you guys. All right. We must avoid looking the other way and saying it isn't my business. We need to step up together because it is our business.